The name whispered through the clandestine networks of intelligence agencies across the globe was the Angel of Odessa. Not an angelic figure by any stretch, but a ruthless arms dealer whose shadow stretched long and dark across the fractured landscapes of post-Soviet Ukraine. His empire of destruction thrived in the chaotic aftermath of the USSR's collapse, a desperate era where desperation bred opportunity for those with no moral compass. The early 1990s in Ukraine were a wild, lawless frontier, a perfect crucible for a master manipulator to forge a devastating enterprise. With state assets crumbling and borders porous, the Angel of Odessa had risen, an elusive phantom whose weapons fueled devastating conflicts from the Balkans to sub-Saharan Africa, leaving trails of blood and despair in his wake. For years, Mossad, Israel's formidable intelligence agency, had pursued him with an almost singular obsession. The Angel represented a direct threat to global stability, his illicit trade arming terrorists and warlords alike. Yet, he remained an enigma, a ghost slipping through their grasp time and again, leaving behind a trail of frustration and unanswered questions. Their sophisticated networks, their legendary agents, all had failed to corner him. Each near miss only deepened the agency's resolve, each failure a stinging reminder of his untouchability. Then, a cryptic message, intercepted from a secure satellite channel, shattered the silence. It was short, coded, and chillingly precise, hinting at a new, devastating arms deal on an unprecedented scale. The implications were catastrophic, promising to ignite new conflicts and destabilize entire regions. The message spoke of a harvest of steel, a phrase that sent shivers down the spines of the analysts who deciphered it. For David, a seasoned Mossad operative with eyes that held the weight of too many battles, this particular message resonated with a chilling personal chord. His family years ago had been indirectly caught in the crossfire of a conflict fueled by the Angel's weapons. The memory was a festering wound, a silent vow to bring down the architect of such suffering. This wasn't just a mission. It was a personal vendetta, a quiet burning rage that fueled his every move. He saw the faces of the victims in every intercepted report, heard their cries in every intelligence briefing. The Angel of Odessa was not just a name, he was a force of nature, a harbinger of death. A recent intelligence report, a rare glimpse into his operations, depicted a scene of chilling brutality. A small, independent arms broker, foolish enough to cross him, had been found in a deserted warehouse, not merely dead, but meticulously dismembered. A gruesome message left for any who dared to defy the Angel's iron rule. There was no empathy in his world, only power, profit, and merciless efficiency. This was the man they were hunting, a predator at the apex of his dark domain. The cryptic message, despite its brevity, contained a seemingly insignificant detail, a specific, archaic shipping code linked to a forgotten port district. It was a thread, thin but tangible, leading them back to the very city that bore his name, Odessa. The sheer audacity of his continued presence in the city, almost a taunt, ignited a fierce determination within the Mossad leadership. The team, hand-picked and meticulously trained, was swiftly deployed. David, his jaw set with grim resolve, was at its head. They moved with the silent precision of shadows, their objectives clear, their purpose unwavering. Yet, as they prepared to descend upon the ancient brooding city, a chilling premonition hung in the air. They were hunters, yes, but they were also walking into a labyrinth, a place where the lines between hunter and hunted could blur with terrifying speed. Unbeknownst to them, the Angel, ever a step ahead, had already laid his traps, meticulously anticipating their arrival. The true nature of the challenge, the depths of the danger, remained shrouded, waiting to reveal itself in the grim streets of Odessa. Odessa greeted them with a stern gray sky, a fitting backdrop for the grim task at hand. The city, a sprawling tapestry of faded grandeur and stark Soviet-era architecture, held a melancholy beauty, its ancient streets whispering tales of empires risen and fallen. For David, however, its facade was merely a veil over a deeper, more insidious darkness. Every cobblestone seemed to echo with the ghosts of past conflicts. every shadowed alleyway a potential hiding place for the elusive angel. The air, heavy with the scent of brine and industrial decay, felt charged with an unspoken tension, a palpable sense of hidden dangers lurking beneath the veneer of everyday life. His mind, even amidst the immediate demands of deployment, drifted back, a familiar ache settling in his chest. A flashback, sharp and vivid, cut through his focus. He saw a dusty, sun-baked village, not unlike countless others, reduced to rubble, its inhabitants scattered, their lives shattered. The image of a child's forgotten toy, half buried in the debris, seared itself into his memory. The intel reports had been clear. The munitions used in that conflict, the very weapons that had torn apart innocent lives, bore the distinct signature of the Angel's network. It was a wound that never truly healed, a constant reminder of the insidious reach of this shadowy figure and the personal cost of his trade. This mission in Odessa wasn't just about neutralizing a threat. It was about confronting a personal demon. The team, a highly skilled unit of Mossad operatives, began their methodical work. They moved through the city like specters, sifting through market chatter, scrutinizing dimly lit taverns, and navigating the labyrinthine bureaucracy that still clung to the vestiges of the old regime. Their initial leads, however, proved cold, each promising thread unraveling into dead ends. The locals, their faces etched with suspicion and weariness, offered little help, their eyes darting nervously, betraying a deep-seated fear. The Angel's influence was clearly pervasive, his name a silent threat that kept mouths shut and eyes averted. Resistance was not overt. It was a quiet, insidious wall of silence built on terror. It was during a routine yet fruitless canvass of the old port district that David experienced a flicker of recognition. Across a bustling fish market, amidst the clamor of vendors and the cries of seagulls, he spotted a familiar, stooped figure. Mykola, an old Ukrainian intelligence contact from a decade past, a man whose sharp mind had once been a beacon of insight in the chaotic post-Soviet landscape. Now Mykola looked older, his face a roadmap of disillusionment, his eyes holding the haunted gaze of one who had seen too much. David approached cautiously, his presence initially causing a jolt of fear in Mykola's eyes. A hushed conversation ensued, punctuated by the cacophony of the market. Mykola's voice was a low rasp, laced with a weariness that spoke volumes. He warned David, his gaze flickering nervously around them, urging him to abandon his pursuit. "He is everywhere, David," Mykola whispered, his hands trembling slightly. "His shadow stretches long. You are hunting a ghost, and ghosts bite." The fear in Mykola's eyes was genuine, a testament to the Angel's terrifying reach. Yet, as David spoke of the Angel's latest atrocities, of the devastation his weapons continued to sow, a faint spark ignited in Mykola's weary gaze. A flicker of the old patriotism, perhaps, or simply a deep-seated grievance against the man who had corrupted their homeland. Mykola hesitated, then leaned closer, his voice barely audible above the market din. He spoke of an abandoned hospital on the outskirts of the city, a forgotten relic of the Soviet era. "It was more than just a hospital," he murmured. "A hub. During the war, many secrets." He offered only a fragmented piece of information, a whisper of a forgotten past, but it resonated with an unexpected weight. The team, upon hearing the suggestion, exchanged skeptical glances. An abandoned hospital seemed too obvious, too exposed a location for a man as cunning as the Angel. It was a derelict, crumbling structure, easily observable, seemingly a poor choice for a clandestine operation. But Mykola, sensing their doubt, clinched his argument with a chilling revelation. "It has tunnels," he stated, his voice gaining a touch of its former authority. "A network beneath it, built for wartime. A perfect lair, hidden in plain sight." The hidden meaning of his words settled over the team, heavy and ominous. The hospital wasn't just a decrepit building, it was a gateway to a subterranean world, a perfect sanctuary for the Angel of Odessa. The revelation of the hidden tunnels beneath the abandoned hospital solidified the team's resolve. Gone was the skepticism, replaced by a grim determination. Preparation for infiltration commenced immediately, a meticulous dance of planning and strategizing. Maps, old and faded, of the hospital's original layout were procured, cross-referenced with Mikola's vague descriptions of the subterranean network. Every entry point, every potential threat, every contingency was discussed, dissected, and rehearsed. David, however, felt a different kind of urgency. The angel was no longer just a name, a shadow. He was a tangible entity, a target within reach. His personal vendetta, long simmering beneath a veneer of professional detachment, began to boil over, clouding his judgment with an almost desperate eagerness. His teammates noticed, their glances laced with concern, but David pushed it aside, his focus narrowed to the man he was hunting. Under the cloak of a moonless night, the Mossad team moved like phantoms through the overgrown perimeter of the abandoned hospital. The structure loomed before them, a skeletal silhouette against the bruised sky, its broken windows like vacant eyes staring into the void. A chilling silence enveloped the place, broken only by the rustling of dry leaves and the distant, mournful cry of a stray dog. The air hung thick with the scent of decay, rotting wood, damp earth, and something indefinable, something that spoke of forgotten pain. Moss crept over crumbling facades, and ivy strangled the few remaining signs of life, turning the once bustling medical facility into a monument to desolation. Each creak of their boots on fallen debris echoed unnervingly in the stillness. Yet, despite the overwhelming sense of abandonment, subtle clues began to emerge, betraying recent activity. A crushed cigarette butt, still retaining the faintest aroma of tobacco, lay near a crumbling archway. A faint, almost imperceptible sheen of oil marked a patch of ground near what appeared to be a collapsed service entrance. These were not the signs of nature reclaiming its own. These were the fingerprints of human presence, recent and deliberate. The team's senses heightened, their movements more cautious, each step a calculated risk. They knew they were close, perhaps closer than they had ever been. Following Mikola's cryptic directions and their own honed instincts, they located the hidden entrance. It was cleverly disguised behind a dense thicket of thorny bushes and a cleverly placed pile of rubble, blending seamlessly with the hospital's decay. A heavy, rusted metal hatch, almost invisible to the casual observer, was their gateway. With practiced efficiency, they breached the seal, revealing a gaping maw of darkness that led downwards into the earth. The air that rushed out was cold and heavy, carrying with it the smell of damp concrete and stagnant water. The labyrinthine tunnels unfolded before them, a bewildering maze of dark, claustrophobic passages. The air grew heavier, pressing in on them, and the only sounds were their hushed breathing and the scuff of their boots. Each turn looked identical to the last, designed to disorient, to trap. The angel's paranoia was evident in every shadowed corner. Pressure plates, tripwires, and crudely fashioned but lethally effective booby traps were strategically placed, turning their progress into a slow, agonizing crawl. Their advanced training was put to the ultimate test, each team member relying on their instincts and the collective vigilance to navigate the treacherous path. A sudden, almost imperceptible shift in the air, a faint metallic click, sent a jolt of ice through David. He instinctively threw himself sideways, pulling the agent nearest to him down. A split second later, a thin, almost invisible monofilament wire, stretched taut across the passage at neck height, snapped back, narrowly missing their faces. Had they been a fraction of a second slower, the consequences would have been dire. The close call served as a stark, chilling reminder of the ruthlessness they were up against. The angel wasn't just hiding, he was actively defending his sanctuary. A cold certainty settled over David. They were not alone in this subterranean world. They were being watched, their every move perhaps anticipated, but by whom, they could not yet tell. The unseen eyes in the darkness added another layer of dread to their already perilous journey. The unseen eyes in the darkness added another layer of dread to their already perilous journey. Suddenly, the oppressive silence of the tunnel shattered as a volley of automatic gunfire erupted from the shadows ahead. The Mossad team, honed by countless hours of training and real-world combat, reacted instantly, dropping to cover. Muzzle flashes briefly illuminated the narrow passage, revealing a small, heavily armed group of mercenaries positioned strategically behind makeshift barricades of concrete slabs and rusted pipes. These were not the ill-equipped thugs they had encountered on the streets of Odessa. These were professionals, their movements coordinated, their intent lethal. A fierce but brief firefight ensued. The confined space amplified the deafening roar of weapons fire, the air thick with the smell of gunpowder and dust. David, leading the charge, moved with a controlled ferocity, his movements fluid and precise. He targeted the mercenaries' firing positions, his shots finding their marks with chilling efficiency. His teammates, equally skilled, provided covering fire, flanking maneuvers, and tactical suppressions. The mercenaries, though well-trained, were ultimately outmatched by the Mossad's superior tactics and unwavering resolve. Within minutes, the firing ceased, replaced by the groans of the wounded and the heavy breathing of the victorious agents. Several mercenaries lay incapacitated, their weapons scattered, their resistance broken. One of the captured mercenaries, a burly man with a scarred face and eyes that still held a glint of defiance, was quickly secured. David knelt before him, his voice low but firm, demanding answers. The mercenary, despite his wounds, initially remained stoic, refusing to break. However, under the Mossad's relentless psychological pressure, he began to crack, his bravado crumbling. He revealed the Angel's extreme security protocols, a testament to the arms dealer's paranoia and vast resources. More critically, he confirmed the Angel's imminent departure, a desperate scramble to escape the tightening net. The Angel, he confessed, was preparing to move his entire operation within hours, sensing the encroaching danger. Then came the unexpected twist, a moment that sent a cold shock through David. As he pressed the mercenary for more details, the man's eyes, dulled by pain and defeat, suddenly widened in a flicker of recognition. "David?" the mercenary rasped, his voice a gravelly whisper filled with a strange mix of disbelief and bitterness. David froze, his carefully constructed composure threatening to shatter. He knew that voice, that face, despite the scars and the years. It was Victor, a man he had served with, a soldier under his command years ago, believed to be dead after a particularly brutal engagement in a forgotten conflict zone. The mercenary's confession poured out, a torrent of disillusionment and despair. Victor, once a loyal comrade, had been left for dead, abandoned by the very system he had sworn to protect. He had survived, barely, but the experience had twisted his perception of loyalty and justice. Disillusioned by the war, by the betrayal he felt, he had turned to the Angel, seeing in him a perverse form of survival, a way to reclaim agency in a world that had discarded him. He spoke of the Angel's allure, the promise of power and protection in a chaotic world, a stark contrast to the hollow idealism that had once fueled their younger selves. David's internal conflict raged. The pain of betrayal was a sharp, visceral ache, mingling with a profound sense of failure. He saw in Victor not just a traitor, but a ghost of his own past, a chilling reflection of what could happen when ideals crumbled. The lines between good and evil, once so clear, now blurred into an agonizing gray. How many others had the Angel corrupted, exploiting their despair and turning them into instruments of his wicked trade? As Victor's life ebbed away, his final act was a dying whisper, a desperate attempt at a twisted form of redemption. With his last breath, he revealed a crucial piece of information, a secret passage, a hidden escape route the Angel intended to use. It was a route known only to a select few, a final desperate gamble for freedom. The old sewage conduit, under Sector 3, bypasses the main exit, Victor gasped, his eyes fixing on David with a plea for understanding before he finally succumbed to his wounds. The words were barely audible, but they resonated with terrifying clarity. The Angel was preparing to leave, and time was running out. The final confrontation was imminent. The team, galvanized by Victor's dying words, moved with renewed urgency, their path now illuminated by the mercenaries' final, desperate act of atonement. They followed the intricate, hand-drawn map Victor had scrawled in his last moments, a crude but precise guide through the hospital's subterranean nightmare. The old sewage conduit, a forgotten artery beneath the decaying structure, led them deeper into the earth, the air growing heavy with the stench of stagnant water and decay. Each step echoed ominously, amplifying the tension that gnawed at their nerves. David, leading the charge, felt the weight of Victor's sacrifice, a grim reminder of the human cost of the Angel's empire. After what felt like an eternity navigating the claustrophobic tunnels, they emerged into an unexpected cavern, a vast underground chamber that defied the squalor above. This was no mere hideout. It was the Angel's command center, a surprisingly sophisticated operation humming beneath the decaying hospital. State-of-the-art monitors glowed with satellite feeds and encrypted communications. Maps of global conflict zones pinpointed with chilling precision adorned the walls, and financial ledgers, meticulously organized, documented the vast sums of money flowing through his network. It was a stark testament to the Angel's reach, a chilling display of how deeply his influence permeated the world's dark underbelly. He wasn't just a dealer, he was an architect of chaos, a puppet master pulling strings across continents. And there he was, the Angel of Odessa, a figure David had pursued for so long, now standing before him. He wasn't the monstrous caricature David had envisioned, nor the swaggering warlord often depicted in intelligence reports. Instead, he was a man of unassuming demeanor, impeccably dressed with eyes that held a disconcerting stillness. He exuded an aura of cold, calculating intellect, a man driven not by malice, but by an absolute devotion to profit and power. It was a chilling realization. The true evil wasn't a raging beast, but a calm, methodical operator. A tense standoff ensued, the air thick with unspoken threats. The Angel was surrounded by a handful of his elite guards, their weapons at the ready, but their numbers were fewer than anticipated, indicating his imminent departure. He surveyed the Mossad team with an unnerving composure, a faint, almost imperceptible smile playing on his lips. "Took you long enough," he remarked, his voice smooth and devoid of any discernible fear. Then he turned his gaze directly to David, a flicker of recognition in his eyes. "Ah, David, the righteous one. Still chasing ghosts, I see." His words dripped with condescension, instantly igniting David's fury. The Angel began to taunt him, revealing an unnerving knowledge of David's past, details that only a select few would know. He spoke of David's family, the very incident that had fueled his personal vendetta, twisting the narrative with cruel precision, exploiting David's emotional vulnerabilities with practiced ease. "Your idealism, David, it's a weakness. It makes you predictable." David, struggling to maintain his composure, tried one last desperate plea, his voice raw with emotion. "Look at the suffering you've caused, the lives you've destroyed. Can't you see the blood on your hands?" He appealed to any lingering humanity, any shred of conscience the Angel might possess, reminding him of the countless victims, the shattered nations, all consequences of his trade. But the Angel merely laughed, a cold, humorless sound that echoed in the cavern. "Humanity? Conscience? These are luxuries, David, for those who can afford them. Ideal in reality." His eyes, devoid of remorse, gleamed with an unsettling self-assurance. "The world wants what I sell. I merely provide the service." It was then that the true nature of the Angel of Odessa became agonizingly clear, an absolute lack of empathy, a void where morality should reside. He was a creature of pure transaction, his soul as empty as the desolate tunnels above. With a dismissive wave of his hand, the Angel barked an order to his remaining guards. Before David could react, a series of ominous beeps began to emanate from the control panels. A timer, stark red against the dark screens, began to count down. "Consider this my final gift," the Angel sneered, his eyes glinting with malicious triumph. "A grand exit, for us all." He had activated a self-destruct sequence, threatening to bury them all beneath tons of concrete and rock, ensuring his secrets and his pursuers would be silenced forever. The cavern began to rumble, dust raining down from the ceiling, and the fight for justice transformed into a desperate race against oblivion. A chaotic battle erupted in the cavern, the air thick with the acrid smell of dust and cordite as the self-destruct sequence relentlessly ticked downwards. David, his face a mask of primal fury, lunged at the angel. Years of simmering rage, of sleepless nights haunted by the angel's destructive reach, coalesced into every punch, every block. This was no longer just a mission, it was a visceral, deeply personal vendetta. The angel, surprisingly agile and ruthless in close quarters, met David's assault with practiced ease, his movements economic and deadly. He was a formidable opponent, a testament to a shadowy past David could only begin to imagine, a past that had forged him into this chillingly efficient merchant of death. Their duel was a brutal dance of combat, punctuated by the rhythmic beeping of the countdown timer, a constant reminder of their impending doom. Meanwhile, the rest of the Mossad team engaged the angel's remaining guards. Explosions rocked the cavern as the team fought with desperate intensity, their every action driven by the dual objectives of neutralizing the immediate threat and disabling the self-destruct mechanism. Walls cracked, debris rained down, and the structural integrity of the underground complex visibly deteriorated. Sarah, the team's tech expert, frantically worked on a control panel, wires sparking as she bypassed security protocols, her brow furrowed in concentration, the weight of their lives resting on her nimble fingers. Elias provided cover fire, his movements precise and deadly, eliminating threats with grim efficiency, while Ben secured their flanks, ensuring no surprises from the collapsing tunnels. In the heart of the chaos, David finally saw an opening. With a desperate surge of strength, he disarmed the angel, sending his weapon clattering across the uneven floor. He had the upper hand, the angel at his mercy, his body pinned against a crumbling support beam. David's hand tightened around the angel's throat, the years of pain and suffering flashing before his eyes. He could end it here, now. The thought was intoxicating, a dark whisper of justice in the maelstrom of the collapsing cavern. But then, a fleeting image of his oath, of the principles he had sworn to uphold, pierced through the red haze of his rage. He was a soldier, not an executioner. He had to bring this man to justice, not become another victim of his destructive wake. The angel, sensing David's moment of hesitation, his mask of composure finally cracking to reveal a flicker of raw fear, seized the opportunity. With a sudden, desperate burst of strength, he headbutted David, momentarily disorienting him. Then, with surprising speed, he twisted free, scrambling towards a section of the wall that David hadn't noticed before. It was a hidden passage, cleverly concealed, a final, desperate escape route. He fumbled with a hidden latch, his eyes darting between David and the rapidly approaching countdown. David was faced with an agonizing choice. Pursue the angel through the collapsing passage, risking getting trapped himself, or stay and help his team disable the self-destruct and escape the crumbling structure. The ground beneath them shuddered violently, dust obscuring his vision. The timer blared its final seconds. He made a split-second decision, yelling for his team to focus on the self-destruct. He couldn't let the angel escape, not after all this. He lunged, tackling the angel just as he was about to disappear into the hidden passage. They tumbled into the narrow opening, the passage partially collapsing behind them, sealing them off from the rest of the team, leaving David alone with his quarry. Pinned against the rough stone, the angel's carefully constructed facade finally shattered. His eyes, once so cold and calculating, now widened with naked terror. He thrashed, desperate, but David held him firm. The angel's breath hitched, a desperate gasp for air. "Who are you?" David snarled, his voice guttural, his grip relentless. With a forceful yank, David tore away the angel's hood, revealing not the face of a stranger, but one that sent a shockwave through David's very being. It was a face he knew, a face that had once been a source of guidance, a face that had haunted his memory for years. The angel of Odessa was unmasked, and the truth was far more devastating than David could have ever imagined. The face staring back at David from beneath the cowl was not merely familiar. It was a ghost from his past, a specter of camaraderie and shared purpose. Elias Volkov. The name resonated with a chilling finality in the collapsing passage. Volkov, his former mentor, the man who had taught him the intricacies of intelligence work, the one who had disappeared years ago after a mission gone horribly wrong, presumed dead. The revelation hit David with the force of a physical blow, stealing his breath, replacing his rage with a profound, aching disbelief. The angel of Odessa, the architect of so much global suffering, was the man who had once been a guiding light in his own life. The betrayal was absolute, a wound that cut deeper than any physical injury. Meanwhile, a few meters away, the rest of the Mossad team worked with frantic precision. Sarah, her brow furrowed in intense concentration, finally managed to bypass the final encryption lock, her fingers dancing across the console. A triumphant beep echoed through the dust-filled air, followed by the sudden, blessed silence of the countdown timer ceasing its relentless march. The self-destruct sequence was disabled. Cheers, muted but heartfelt, erupted from the team. They had done it. They had averted disaster, surviving the Angel's final desperate gamble. The hospital, though severely damaged, its structural integrity compromised, would not become their tomb. Ben and Elias, their faces streaked with grime and sweat, rushed to the partially collapsed passage where David had disappeared. They found him kneeling, Volkov now subdued and cuffed, his eyes fixed on the man he had once revered. The sheer weight of the moment hung heavy in the air, a silent testament to the personal tragedy unfolding. Volkov, stripped of his power and his anonymity, appeared smaller, his defiance replaced by a chilling, almost vacant stare. His reign of terror, a shadow that had stretched across continents, was finally over, yet the victory felt profoundly hollow, tainted by the bitter taste of personal betrayal. In the hours that followed, the Mossad team moved with methodical efficiency. They secured Volkov, meticulously cataloged the vast amount of evidence hidden within the Angel's sophisticated command center. Maps detailing intricate supply chains, encrypted communication devices revealing a vast network of contacts, financial records charting billions in illicit arms deals. The sheer scale of his operation was staggering. It was a network built on fear and greed, now crumbling in the aftermath of its architect's capture. The abandoned hospital, once a symbol of decay, now held the keys to dismantling a global criminal enterprise. David, though physically unharmed, felt a profound emptiness. He sat opposite the captured Volkov, the air thick with unspoken history. He sought answers, a glimmer of explanation for the monstrous transformation of the man he had once known. Why, Elias? David's voice was hoarse, barely above a whisper. Why all of this? Volkov, however, remained impassive, his gaze distant, his silence a wall David could not penetrate. There was no remorse, no flicker of recognition for the past they had shared, only a cold, indifferent void. It was as if the man David knew had truly died years ago, replaced by this chilling, calculating entity. News of the Angel of Odessa's capture spread like wildfire across global intelligence networks. A collective sigh of relief echoed from capitals around the world. The elusive arms dealer, responsible for fueling countless conflicts and destabilizing regions, was finally brought to justice. It was a significant victory, a testament to Mossad's unwavering persistence. Yet for David, the triumph was bittersweet. The immediate threat was neutralized, the monster contained, but the broader implications of Volkov's betrayal, the devastating personal cost of their shared past, lingered like a persistent, unwelcome shadow. The world might celebrate a hero, but David carried the heavy burden of having unmasked a ghost. The return to headquarters was a strangely subdued affair. There were no triumphant parades, no raucous celebrations. The victory, while undeniable, felt heavy, weighted down by the visceral memories of the abandoned hospital and the profound personal cost of their mission. David walked through the sterile corridors, the metallic gleam of the polished floors a stark contrast to the gritty decay he had just navigated. His mind replayed the confrontation with Volkov, the chilling indifference in the eyes of a man he had once called friend. His debriefing was meticulous, a clinical dissection of the operation. He recounted every detail, from the initial intel to the final, desperate struggle in the collapsing tunnels. He spoke of Volkov's strategic genius, his ruthlessness, and the sheer scale of his criminal empire. But when it came to the moment of unmasking, the revelation of Volkov's true identity, his voice faltered. He described the shock, the disbelief, the painful clash between the heroic figure he remembered and the monstrous arms dealer he had apprehended. The room was silent, the senior officers listening intently, their faces etched with a mixture of grim satisfaction and an unspoken understanding of the emotional toll this mission had taken on their agent. The emotional weight on David was immense. He struggled to reconcile the past with the present, the vibrant, idealistic comrade with the cold, calculating merchant of death. Sleep offered little respite, haunted by fragmented memories of shared laughter and whispered confidences, now twisted into grotesque parodies by Volkov's betrayal. He understood the strategic value of his capture, the temporary lull it would bring to the global arms trade, but it was a fleeting relief. He knew with a certainty that chilled him to the bone that new threats would inevitably emerge, Hydra-headed, from the shadows. The vacuum left by Volkov would not remain empty for long. Yet, amidst the lingering despair, a new sense of purpose began to solidify within David. He had faced the darkness, stared into the abyss of human depravity, and emerged. The fight was never truly over, he realized, but it was a fight worth waging. His understanding of the enemy, of the insidious ways evil could twist and corrupt, had deepened. He carried the heavy burden of his experiences, the personal scars of a battle fought not just for global security, but for the ghost of a friendship lost. He knew now that heroism was not about grand gestures, but about the relentless, often thankless grind of confronting darkness, even when it wore a familiar face. Back in Ukraine, the abandoned hospital stood as a silent sentinel. Its decaying walls, once a symbol of forgotten history, now bore the invisible marks of a profound struggle. It was a monument to both victory and loss, a testament to the Mossad's triumph and David's personal sacrifice. The wind whistled through its broken windows, carrying whispers of the past, echoes of the chaos and the quiet heroism that had unfolded within its derelict confines. The moral ambiguity of their world was stark. The fight against evil was a perpetual one, a shadowy dance where victories were often tinged with sorrow, and heroes carried burdens unseen by the public eye. The angel of Odessa was gone, his nefarious reign brought to an end. But the shadows of his legacy, the countless lives shattered by his weapons, and the profound personal cost of justice for those who pursued him, would forever remain. Yet in the quiet resolve of agents like David, in their unwavering commitment to confronting the darkness, there was a fragile, enduring message of hope, a promise that despite the pervasive shadows, there would always be those who continued to fight for a better, safer world, one difficult, painful step at a time. The mission was complete, but the war, David knew, would rage on.